Scott Gecas at the edge of the trading floor in Chicago with Walsh Trading. Scott, we've got the estimates now here going into this World Supply and Demand report. What do you think of these estimates, the average of the estimates that we've seen so far?
Well, it's very interesting this week because everyone's going to be focusing on the planning progress that's going to come out later today. And then you have the supply and demand report on Tuesday. So the volatility just in general across the board is really elevated, anywhere between 2 to 4% above the 20-day moving or the 20-day historical volatility. So, but on the other end, it's very light volume. Everybody's just waiting to see. There's really not too much positioning. And that is confirmed by just a light volume with the futures as well as the options. So as far as the estimates go, though, that's exactly what they are. They're just estimates, anyone's guess. We got to wait and see what the actual number is going to be to actually be able to trade on. So everyone's going to be waiting and seeing right now.
Let's look at these numbers for the estimates, and this will be the average trade guess going into this report. The corn coming in at 170.3 bushels per acre, and the soybeans at just a shade around that. The soybean yield 48.7 to be exact. Corn production, kind of interesting, 13.9 billion. Soybean production, 4.10 billion. The stockpile number also is kind of interesting here as well. When you look at the U.S. stockpiles, the average guess 2.20 for that's billion bushels, by the way. The soybeans 1.01 billion bushels, and the wheat 1.11 billion bushels. So as you mentioned, those are guesstimates. Speaking of anticipation of reports, Scott, we've got that planning progress that you talked about today, and it's also got the crop condition ratings. Have you heard of any guesses of what everybody's looking for in the trade on these?
Well, in soybeans in particular, if we can't get 80% to or above, we're expecting that yield to drop about 25% if it's not planted by today. And those estimates for the yield drop, increases week by week. So that's why this is a very important number going into the close today.
All right, we'll come back and we'll see what's going on in that livestock trade. Last check, most things were higher. We'll talk to Scott about that, so stay with us right here on the Market Day Report. Let's pick up our conversation with Scott Gecas with Walsh Trading in Chicago, there at the edge of the trading floor. Scott, there's a lot of different things that can move this protein complex, and one of them, of course, is just the consumption. How the consumer, not just the foreign consumer or markets overseas, but the consumer here on United States soil, and how they kind of look at this. What are you hearing, or what do you think when you see this protein complex like it is, and we keep having all of this cool weather? There were temperatures only into the 40s and 50s in parts of the United States over the weekend.
Yeah, and that's one of the main things that we're looking at here is, the seasonal demand, just domestic-wise. The weather is just completely hurting the seasonal demand. No one's outside grilling. No one's spending a little bit more money at the grocery store buying any of the proteins, whether it be beef or pork. So that's definitely putting a little bit of downside pressure on it. When you look at the cattle market in particular, the chart just absolutely looks broken. The weights are a little bit light, poor exports, For the cattle market, we're looking to test contract lows around 100.4 or so.
Interesting. What about this hog complex? There was a lot of talk going into the weekend. We ended up limit lower on some of those contracts on Friday about all this concern about, are we going to have trade with Mexico? Are we not? Now we've got a little bit of a rebound here. How much of that do you think is attributed to the more positive news from our relationship with Mexico?
Well, I think that is a little bit of a bullish catalyst. It's propping the market up just a little bit. But again, there's very light volume across the board today. The hog market in particular, there's nothing but bullish headlines, bullish fundamentals to the upside, but the market keeps pulling back lower. I mean, that's usually due to, again, that seasonal domestic demand is definitely dragging the prices down. The weights are a little bit higher in the hogs. So we're going to wait and see how this is really going to play out. I mean, for the July contract, we're looking at 85, or the August contract, I apologize. We're looking for an 85 resistance. If we could break above that 85 and close above that, I think we got a little bit more room to run.
Okay. Yeah, you brought up a good point about those waits. Scott, it's good to visit with you today. Hope you have a good Monday afternoon. Scott Gecas, Walsh Trading, over in the live cattle complex.